Previously on Unscripted.
There's something that's been bugging me.
Oh, we haven't done a What Bugs Me in forever.
It's been a while.
Well, I'm sure you have things that bug you on the daily, no?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But most of them I can't talk about on this show because it involves coworkers.
You're listening to Unscripted with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We're not doing a countdown or a favorite or a top five. We're just going to talk about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel because the series came to an end this year and I've been wanting to do this for a while. And then ever since you started watching, you've been wanting to do this for a while. So we're finally going to do it today.
Thank God. I've been waiting for you. You know, you watched season 1 to 4 and I didn't even start. I never watched the show. Then I completely caught up, binged the whole thing last year, and watched all of season 5 as soon as it came out. And now I've been waiting. I'm waiting for you to watch it. So, we're ready to go today.
We're ready to go. But before we get to that, I want to mention some things about some past episodes we did. I think our last episode was songs from 1984. And I did not mention the Tragically Hip in that episode. However, they were formed in 1984. Of course, I didn't really even find out about them till a few years later. But, just want to mention they were formed in 1984.
Okay, well, nice little factoid there.
And then another thing, this was I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, we did songs with days of the week.
We did.
So, I found out this week, the song, there's a song that is played at sporting events. I don't even know what it's called. I can hum it for you because I don't think it has any words.
Okay.
So you know the song. It's da 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 da.
Isn't that from the Addams Family?
So yes, it is. I didn't know that till this week, but yes, it is from the Addams Family. So as it turns out, at my nephew's daycare, they sing that song, but they put in their own words.
Very nice.
So the words they use are the following, and please let me finish. Goes like this. Days of the week, days of the week, days of the week, days of the week, days of the week. There's Sunday and there's Monday, there's Tuesday and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday.
Wow.
So this song is eligible for our list of songs with days of the week because it's got every day of the week in it.
Not only is it eligible, it should be number 1. First of all, the fact that you just sang it should make it number 1 immediately. This should be it. I can't believe you just sang that song. You have a lot more courage. I don't think I could ever sing a song a lot of people tell me you guys are awesome. You guys put yourself out there. You record every 2 weeks. You're genuinely yourselves. And it's a little bit it's not for everybody to do what we're doing. Not saying that we're superheroes or we're doing anything so special, but we're doing it. And actually, I could never sing a song on this. I talk about my family. We talk about all kinds of stuff, but to sing a song, congratulations. That was awesome.
I mean, it's a kid's song. It's not, I really didn't have to strain my vocal cords to do that one.
All day I'm going to be singing today, the Days of the Week song.
Okay, Skip, do we have any listener mail?
Mailbag.
Yes, we do. Songs from 1984. Derek from Montreal via our Facebook page. Derek's funny. 1984. Where to begin? This episode and the music clips brought back such great memories. Love most of the picks. I would have had Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do With It in my top spot. A few others not mentioned: Warrior by Scandal, Drive by the Cars, Easy Lover by Phil Collins and Philip Bailey. I never liked that song. And Prince, When Doves Cry. But he agrees 1983 was the better year for pop music. Potentially setting up another episode.
Right.
Stephanie from Montreal, also via our Facebook page. She said, love the picks. Here are some I remember loving at that time. Sunglasses at Night, Corey Hart, Time After Time, Cyndi Lauper, Thriller, Michael Jackson, Love is a Battlefield, Pat Benatar, and 99 Luft Balloons by Nena. Did you like that song?
I did, actually, yes.
Me too. Mark from Philadelphia messaged me. He said, I would add Time After Time. Although and this is the second person that's mentioned time after time, right? I think it might have been from 1985, but I mean, sometimes the lines get blurred with the years,
Of
so
course,
we'll
yeah.
accept it. Borderline and Holiday from Madonna, The Warrior by Scandal, New Moon on Monday, Duran Duran, and Come On Feel the Noise. Is that Quiet Riot?
Yes, it is.
Jason from Montreal. He didn't post on Facebook, but he messaged me directly via Facebook. We had a whole conversation about David Bowie, Springsteen. He had tickets to the Springsteen concert in Albany, in Syracuse, sorry, that was canceled. So Jason goes on to say, Bowie's worst album came out in 1984, so I don't think I can make any comments.
Okay.
But he continued saying, when it comes to 80s music and choosing a top 5, it's like asking who are the top 5 MLB players ever. Like, there's too many, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. And of course, we got an email from our good friend Jesse in Dallas, Texas. A few of the 1984 songs I loved, leaving off any songs from Born in the USA because that goes without saying. I agree, Jesse. Billy Joel's The Longest Time, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Cadillac Ranch, Willie Nelson, City of New Orleans, Van Halen Jump, Pointer Sisters, I'm So Excited, and Twisted Sister, We Aren't Gonna Take It.
Love it. This is great.
That concludes the listener mail. Now, I asked ChatGPT, Josh, what are the best songs from 1984? ChatGPT really let us down this week. It's showing its faults.
What happened?
Well, I asked ChatGPT what are the best songs of 1984, and gave me the best songs of every year are subjective. It varies depending on personal taste. Blah 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 blah. As Seinfeld would say, yada yada yada. So this is the songs that it gave me. Like a Virgin, Madonna. I'm pretty sure that was in 1984. I don't think it was.
Okay.
Because we were talking about, because that's not even the same album as Borderline and Holiday that we just mentioned.
Right.
When Doves Cry by Prince, Take On Me by Aha, which I'm almost certain was 1985. Careless Whisper, George Michael. What's Love Got to Do with It, Tina Turner, Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. And then here's the big mistake. Sweet Child of Mine, Guns N' Roses. Like, that's 1987. That's not even close.
Well, you can't use ChatGPT to write your school papers now.
Exactly. I Want to Know What Love Is, Foreigner, Wake Me Up Before You Go, Go Wham, Time After Time, Cyndi Lauper. So yeah. We may have to have a word with ChatGPT and let him know that Sweet Child of Mine is from 1987. Maybe it corrects itself. It's supposed to be this artificial intelligence.
Okay, we'll be right back after this to talk about the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
You're listening to Unscripted.
Are you taking a month-long vacation in the stratosphere and you know how hard it is to hold your breath? Are you the cosmic kid in full costume dress? You've got a nice little place in the podcast universe with Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is your podcast for all things Bruce Springsteen fandom. We discuss his music, we talk about his tour, and we also talk to fans of other musicians and share their story of their passion, their fandom, and the way that their favorite artist music makes them feel. Set Listing Bruce, a Bruce Springsteen fan podcast, is available wherever you find podcasts. Remember, there is magic in the night.
And now, back to Unscripted.
Okay, Skip, we're back.
We've been doing top 5 episodes for a while. We haven't done one of these TV show recaps in a little while.
I think the last one we did was White Lotus.
Yes, you're right.
Maybe 6 months ago?
Yeah. And it's always harder to prepare for these because, we really should do a better job of preparing, to be honest. Like, we could have like a proper format with questions that we want to answer, things that we want to go over. But instead, we're just going to do like a free-for-all of Mrs. Maisel topics, which is perfectly fine because that's the way we roll. Like we always say, our show, our rules. But I wanted to start at least with some structure. And just to tell people, if you haven't watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, it's a show on Amazon Prime. If you haven't watched, you probably don't want to listen to this episode because we're basically going to give you a million spoilers and tell you everything that happened in the show. So, there's that. That's the spoiler warning. Just to set the scene, the show is set in the late 50s and early 60s, and it follows the life of Miriam Midge Maisel, who, after her husband leaves her, she discovers that she has a talent for stand-up comedy, and she's trying to pursue that. And it stars Rachel Brosnahan in the title role of Midge Maisel.
Yes, you described it very well. I will confess that I watched seasons 1 through 4 way back and watched season 5 very recently. So seasons 1 through 4 are not that clear in my memory. But season 5 is very clear. And we will talk about, I think, season 5 mostly, but we're going to go back and talk about the whole series. Even though I did mention it, certainly in our Best of 2021 episode, this was my favorite show of that year, even though the show came out in 2017.
Yeah. When in 2021, when we did that best of episode, not only was it your show of the year, I think you kind of exclaimed that it was maybe one of your favorite shows of all time.
That's very possible. That sounds like something I would have said, and I would still say that today.
It is an extremely entertaining show. Season 1 to 4. I'm going to say negative stuff about the show, but I just want to put this out there. I really like this show. I really love this show, right? Season 1 to 4 have a lot of ups and downs. There's some great parts, and then there's some parts that I could really do without, But so much so that my wife was didn't even care about season 5. She's like, let's just watch season 5, so we'll see what happens. But she really the parts of the show that she didn't like that much, really kind of ruined it for her a little bit. She wasn't as enthusiastic, but we both agree season 5 was really, really great. And so much so, when a show is really good, it's hard to have a good ending. And this show really had a great ending. It had a fitting ending of the whole series. They really ended it properly, properly and well. So I really was satisfied with how the show ended, and I really loved the final season.
So the final season I found to be completely different from the first 4 seasons. First of all, the final season has a lot of flash forwards.
Yes.
Which none of the other seasons have. And I guess I'm satisfied with the way they ended it. I am a little bit disappointed in the fact that they seem to rush through season 5. There's a lot of stuff that happened in season 5. They divulge everything in season 5. In fact, they divulge everything basically in episode 3 of season 5. Never mind, you don't have to wait until the last episode of the season to find out what happens in her career. You find out in episode 2 or 3.
Yeah, because there's so many flash forwards. You're right, because all those other seasons basically took place in a very set amount of time.
In real time.
It's in real time, but not exactly real time. One season could have encapsulated a year or a 6-month period, right?
But there was no flash forwards in the previous seasons.
No, and then right away, season 5, they flash forward to the 80s. You see her daughter, who's a 20-year-old. You're like, oh my God, her daughter is all grown up, right? And then they tell you right away, her daughter hates her mother, right? That from episode 1 of season, right away, episode 1, her daughter doesn't like her mother. And then there's flash forwards to the 80s, the 90s, and it flash forwards at the very end all the way to 2005. That's where it ends. But yes, you're right. In episode 3, you find out that she is super famous. They put together a fake 60 Minutes maybe, or Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah. I think it was more like 60 Minutes. I think that was the goal.
A news documentary about her life, and you see that she is basically one of the most famous stand-up comedians ever. And she's super wealthy, and she's a big celebrity. They have fake marriages, right? They tell you she was married to Paul Simon, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I forget who.
They make up stuff about her life, right? Which is interesting.
I was a little disappointed that they divulged that in episode 2 or 3 of the last season, because prior to that, you're like in suspense because prior to that, she was just up and coming and fledgling. And, you know, they didn't know where their career, like when I say they, her and her agent, Susie, didn't know where the career was going to go. And at one point, you know, Midge was Susie's only client. And so then when they flash forward and you see how big and famous she is, I'm like, well, you're already telling me that. We're only in episode 2 or 3. What else are you going to tell me the rest of the way? I mean, yes, there were other things that they told. I was a little disappointed that they divulged that so early in the season. And the other thing I wanted to mention about what you said about her daughter, like that's the opening scene of this season. And at first I'm like, who is that? I have no clue who that is. And it took me a while to figure it out. And then what I did was, so I watched the whole episode and I'm like, okay, I have to go back and watch the last episode of season 4 because I forgot everything. So I watched the last
episode of season 4 is she's in the snowstorm, right?
Right, exactly. That's the one where Lenny Bruce performs at Carnegie Hall.
Right.
So I had to go back and watch that episode. And then I went back and watched episode 1 of season 5 again. And by the way, it's a good thing I did because there's so many things that I missed the first time watching episode 1. And that's another thing about this show. The dialogue is so good and so quick that there are things that you miss all the time.
Well, especially with Midge, like Rachel Brosnahan, like her dialogue is so fast. It's like, it's head spinning. And actually, it's not just her. It's her parents too. And also Moish and Shirley, Joel's parents. Like, it's the dialogue is like head spinning. I'm like, how did they write this? And even if they did write it, how did the actors do it? You know, because it's really like, it's warp speed, you know, like the dialogue.
By the way, I think I mentioned this when I said it was my favorite show of the year, but you know, there's amazing characters in this show, amazing actors in this show. My favorite character, and I think the character that has the best lines, is Abe, Midge's dad.
Yeah.
Like, I love Abe. I love Abe.
It's interesting that you mentioned, because I wanted to sort of go over the characters, you know, but we can start. Well, obviously Midge is the main character, and you know, we don't have to discuss each one, but Abe is freaking annoying. Like, I know you told me, like, we talked about the show before today, and you told me you love Abe, but he is so annoying sometimes, and his wife equally annoying. Honestly, because they are so, I mean, it makes sense when you see the end. Like, they are so tunnel vision. It's like Abe gets one idea in his head, and then that's all he's thinking about. The building could be on fire, and he's like, I gotta write my review, you know? And then
that's what I love about Abe.
You know, and like other things could be happening, and Rose, Abe's wife, is like, who's going to make dinner tonight? Like, every episode they focus on one thing, and that's the only thing in their mind. And actually, it kind of makes sense when you get to the end, because like they neglected their kids completely their whole lives, because like Midge could never get her parents' attention because they're always focused on stupidity, right? They're always focused on anything else other than her. And then even when she tried to pursue her comedy career, they never took her seriously. They thought it was a joke. They didn't even come to her performances, even when she was on tour in season 3 with Shy Baldwin, you know, that whole thing in Florida. And like it's they're I mean, obviously, look, they're caricatures. It's to the extreme, right? They are the extreme of what you think of like a parent that basically doesn't give their kids any attention. But, you know, when you get to the end, well, they tell you in season 1, like they tell you right away in episode 1, like you said, you see her daughter, and it's clear that her daughter doesn't have a relationship with her mother because her mother, Midge, treated her own kids the same way that she was treated by her parents, right? Like they're almost strangers to her, you know? So that's why when you get to the end of the season, basically, you know, Midge doesn't have anybody. She only person she has in her life is Susie, right? Because she literally doesn't have anybody, because this is the behavior she learned from her own parents, you know?
Right. And I actually, you bring up a question that I had, and maybe I should have figured this out on my own, but you know, there's a time where they show in the flash forward where Midge and Susie don't talk for years, I think.
Yeah.
And the reason being that Midge
There's,
was
like, a couple
upset
of
or
reasons.
pissed with Susie because of what Susie did to Joel.
Right. There's a great episode. You know, season 5 has 2 really great episodes. Like the last one and the second to last one, which is the lead up to her big break on the Gordon Ford show. And then the other great episode, I forget which episode number it is. It's when they flash forward into the 90s, I think. And then it's a roast of Susie Meyerson, you know, where they have all the other agents there and showbiz people, and
That's the most
and then
important episode, you could say.
it is, because you find out, first of all, that her and Midge aren't talking. You find out actually everything that happened to Susie, like all the things she did to become the most powerful agent, you know, in Hollywood, basically. And then the main thing that you find out, which is an incredible scene, when they arrest Joel in the synagogue, right? It's shocking. Like, Joel goes to jail. He's in jail. Like, he took the fall, you know? Like, he took the fall to basically maybe protect Midge. I don't know, like, exactly, but I mean,
so let me ask you, and maybe you can explain this to me. First of all, I don't know why Midge was upset with Susie, because it was Joel's idea to do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Susie's idea. So
Exactly.
if anything, she should have been upset at Joel. That's
Yeah.
one thing I didn't understand. The other thing I didn't understand is, they show the scene where Joel goes to talk to those 2 gangsters and says, just leave Midge out of this. You have nothing to do with her. You can, you know, I own bars, I own clubs, I own restaurants, and whatever. But what did he do? They don't show you or tell you what he did that got him arrested.
Well, I mean, I think it starts off small, and he's laundering money for them through his bars and his restaurants and all this stuff. And then obviously many years goes by, and who knows how many bars and restaurants he has that are sort of owned by the mob with him. And he's basically just laundering money through his businesses for the mob. And then eventually, when the mob got taken down, he took the fall, you know?
Okay.
But the other thing that they do mention, the other reason why Midge and Susie had that big fight, it's Joel is one thing. Joel was the catalyst, because it made Midge realize something's wrong here, right? But Midge was very suspicious of that Susie was sending her on jobs because she needed to pay off her gambling debts.
Well, there was only that one job at that, like, convention or something.
Yeah, exactly.
There was that one where it's like, why am I doing this?
But then she started to wonder if other jobs she was sending her out to do if Susie had different motivations, right? If Susie's not looking out for her anymore, why does she need Susie? But I mean, her and Susie were a team. Like, they did everything together. They did it all together. Like, Susie, like, did everything for her, you know? So, but also Susie also stole money from her. Susie took all her money in the previous season. She gambled away all the money that she made on the tour with Shai Baldwin. And then Joel's the one that actually kind of paid it back. And you can imagine Joel paid her back.
I'm glad you reminded me about that, because it's been years since I saw that episode, but thank you for reminding me. The other thing that sort of, I don't know if the word bothered is the right word, but bothered me about the last season is the first 4 seasons, as I said earlier, you know, Midge and Susie, they're just struggling to make it work. You know, they buy this crappy car, they drive around the United States, and like they're staying at crappy hotels and whatever. And then in the last season, you know, when they flash forward to things, and even not just flash forwarding, but even like in present day, if you will, in the last season, both Midge and Susie, I find them to be a little bit arrogant. You know, they're characters. Sure. They're like, they sort of act like they know that they're the hottest thing since sliced bread, and, you know, where it's completely different from their characters in the first 4 seasons.
Yeah, but this must be the reality of Hollywood. Once you make it famous, like, you think you're the tops, you know, like.
I suppose, yes. It's just it happens very quickly, because again, the flash forward, I think, happens in episode 2 of season 5. So keep in mind, if you haven't seen the rest of season 5, you're still thinking, oh, what happens with her career? Does she make it? Does she become famous? And then boom, you know right away. You know right away that she became famous. You just don't know how she got there. So the payoff is not like, the payoff for the viewer is not the final, like, okay, she made it.
But now you want to find out how she made it, which obviously leads up to in the last 2 episodes where she eventually, does her act on the Gordon Ford show, and then that sort of launches her, right? So
The other thing that I was disappointed about season 5 is I really like the Lenny Bruce character, and he's only in 2 episodes. And then you find out at the end why, because like his career basically went completely downhill almost right after that Carnegie Hall show. His career went pretty much down the drain. And I Googled him, and what they said in the show actually sort of happened in real life to Lenny Bruce as well.
yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? I'm glad you brought up Lenny Bruce because I think he's a very important character in the show. And I think we agree he's one of our favorites. He's definitely one of my favorites. The episodes when Lenny Bruce was in it are the best episodes. Like, I loved the relationship between him and Midge. And, I mean, you're kind of rooting for them to get together, but kind of not because they're definitely not matched. I mean, they did get together, once. But Lenny Bruce is interesting because every person in the show is fictional, except Lenny Bruce.
Right, that's right.
Right? I mean, they're all based on real people. Like, Gordon Ford is clearly Johnny Carson, like, from what I understand.
Yeah, I agree.
I
That's
mean,
what I thought also.
I mean, even Midge herself supposedly is based on Joan Rivers. It's not this. The show is not like based on a true story or anything. It's literally just the idea of the character, right? But Lenny Bruce is the only like real person that actually existed in this time, and there's a great scene. I forget what episode it's in. It's late in season 5 where they flash forward to 1965. Most of the show is taking place at this point in 1962. Mm-hmm. And they go to see Lenny playing at a club in San Francisco, and he's all drugged out. He's barely conscious. His act sucks. He's not doing anything. And he asks if Midge is there, and Susie says no, but she is there. Midge, this is like classic Susie because she wanted to protect both of them, right? Like, she told Lenny that Midge wasn't there, and then she told Midge Lenny didn't want to see you, and it's like, it's really quite amazing because he dies the year after. Lenny Bruce passed away in 1966 of an overdose, and this is basically, they don't ever mention that in the show. They don't talk about it. Even in the other flash forwards, you could have, there could have been stuff about them, but you just kind of understood that this is the end for him. He's great. Like, the actor, Luke Kirby, is so great as Lenny Bruce. There's a scene in season 5 when they're at the airport, they cross paths at the airport.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
It's like one of the best scenes in the whole show. It's so good. I really enjoyed the Lenny Bruce character. And the opposite of the spectrum, I could not stand Sophie Lennon, played by Jane Lynch.
I agree. Couldn't stand her either.
So annoying. Like, I didn't like the stuff with Sophie Lennon. It was like, bothered me.
I have to tell you my favorite Abe line from the last season.
I'm glad you mentioned Abe because I want to talk to you about the best part of Abe in the whole series and maybe one of the most important scenes in the whole series as well. Go ahead.
I'm jumping around from story to story here. There's no structure to this episode whatsoever, but I want to tell you my favorite Abe line from the last season. So it's in episode 1 where Midge is in bed and she's not talking and like her parents can't get her to say anything. They can't even get her to wake up. So they're desperate. Yeah. They call Susie and Susie comes over and it's like snowing and whatever. And she's got snow all over her hat and her jacket.
Oh, and it's the day after the big snowstorm. Yeah.
Right. And Susie just walks in because she's got the key. And like everyone's worried about like Midge. And Abe is like, how did you get in? And Susie's like, well, I have a key. And Abe's like, why do you have a key? She's like, well, because I have a key from a long time ago and I still have it. And Abe's like, well, can we get the key back from you? Like, that's all he cares about is the key and how Susie got into the apartment. Never mind the fact that his daughter is lying in a bed, like, and hasn't said a word in hours and maybe lost a toe.
Right. She's got hypothermia and he just cares about the key. That's classic
It was
Abe.
Hilarious.
So as much as we said about Abe that he fixates on one stupid detail after another, and he basically ignores his daughter's career, and then he starts to have a relationship with his grandchildren, and he really wants his grandson to be the genius of the family like him and his other son, and then he realizes his grandson is not smart, and then because of a little bit of weird circumstance with the granddaughter playing the piano, he realized the granddaughter is actually the genius. So he decides he's going to cultivate the granddaughter. But it just goes to show the show does a great job of showing the times, the late 50s, early 60s. He could not even imagine that his granddaughter could be a scientist or a mathematician or a professor or a doctor. Like, that was not even conceivable to men in the 1950s, right? And, there's some crazy stuff that, like, now when you watch this, you're like, could it have really been like that? She gets arrested, Midge, in, like, season 1 because she exposes herself and she's swearing on stage. They arrest her, which, anyways. And the judge is like, is your husband here with you? Like, a woman can't be in court without her husband being present. That's how, like, think about how our society has changed so much since then. But I want to go back to Abe because we said, like, he fixates on stupid stuff. But episode 8 of the final season is Abe's greatest moment. He's at the restaurant with all his cronies there. They're talking about stuff. And finally, the light bulb turns on in his head. Like, I remember learning in, like, high school English literature class, like, what an epiphany is. An epiphany is where you have this great revelation, right? And he finally has his epiphany moment where about his family and about Midge specifically, and for the first time, Abe acknowledges how wrong he was and his deep regret for ignoring Midge for so long and not helping her with her career, and he realizes everything she's been through. She's got divorced. She has her kids. She's juggling, like, being a parent with her career, and she's doing everything. She bought the apartment for them, Like, they would be out on the street if it wasn't for their daughter. And he finally realizes, and he says it, my daughter is a remarkable person. And that's the moment he realizes we have to support her instead of just being these idiots that we've been being for 5 years. It's really an amazing, amazing scene. And I like Tony Shalhoub, the actor, got so much praise for his role as Abe, but a lot of it is because of this particular scene in episode 8.
So I don't know if it's the same. I agree with you. And there's another scene that I really liked. It was more of a funny scene. And I don't know if it was the same episode, but it's the scene where he's talking to his granddaughter and he's reading a book and he leaves the book there in the hopes that she will grab the book. And then he goes and talks to his wife, Rose, and he's whispering to Rose because he doesn't want the granddaughter to hear. He's like, yes, I'm hoping that she tries to read the book. And Rose is like, well, if you put candy in the book, she might actually read the book. Just the scene is great. It's just a great scene.
He's coolest because, like, yes, she's really smart, and we know that she's highly intelligent because in that one little scene where they flash forward to the daughter, you find out that she is like a doctor or a scientist, right? So, he keeps forgetting she's like 5 years old. So, like, she's not going to start reading Grapes of Wrath or, War and Peace. She's just not, like put a candy, she might read it. But when he does realize that his daughter is a genius, it's because when she plays piano and she's able to memorize the music notes and everything, like, he starts to realize, oh, she can do stuff and she sees things that, like, a regular 5-year-old kid doesn't, So it's pretty great. Can we just talk for a second about the Maisel family, Moish, Shirley, and Joel?
Sure.
I love Moish, and as much as Shirley is annoying, it just goes. She's a really good person. Like, the reason, I'm the Weissman family, Midge, Rose, and Abe. They're selfish. They are selfish people. Midge herself too is selfish because she doesn't care about her own kids. She'd rather work on her career, right? And we see this at the end because, like I said, in 2005 when the show ends, the only friend in the world she has is Susie. She's got this huge house, and there's no one there. She's got pictures of her family on the piano. They make a point of showing it, but they're not around. Her family doesn't want to know her. All she has is Susie. But Moish and Shirley, these are good people. These are people that care. Shirley is annoying as hell, but she's got a sandwich in her purse ready to give you if you're hungry. She puts food in other people's freezers so that when she goes over to their house, if they don't have food, she's like, oh, I put this here a year ago. We can heat it up.
A year
like,
ago.
She's crazy, right? And Moish, after he has like a heart attack and he kind of changes and they are really good people. And it shows because Joel is a really good person. Joel's the best character. When I say the best, I mean, he's the best of what people should be, He made one mistake in his life, and it was a huge mistake. He cheated on Midge. That was the mistake that he will regret for his entire life. And the rest of the show is all about Joel trying to make it up to her for ruining things for her. But I mean, if he didn't cheat on her, would she have become a stand-up comedian? Like, everything would have changed, right?
Right, that's right. I want to talk about a character that we haven't mentioned and is not really a main character, although she was in 32 episodes, and that's Zelda. Because I find Zelda is very underrated. A lot of the scenes with Zelda in them, there's a million things going on in the scene, and Zelda is sort of in the background, and you have to pay very close attention to the things that she says. I mean, I can't repeat every line that she's had, but one of the last scenes that she was in, this is after she gets married, and then Rose and Abe realize that they won't have Zelda anymore.
Right.
So you see Zelda,
and they're so stupid. They actually want to stop the wedding. They want to stop the wedding because they need to keep Zelda because they wouldn't be able to function without her.
Right. Well, there's a scene, I think, where Joel and Midge are on the balcony talking, and in the background, you see Zelda teaching Rose and Abe how to use the vacuum cleaner. It was hilarious. Like, they've never used a vacuum cleaner. They don't know how to turn it on. They don't know anything about it. It was too funny.
When they get married, when Zelda gets married, you find out later because they keep calling her. Can you come over and show us how to do this? Or can you come over because there's this? And she keeps telling them, it's in the book I left you. She wrote them like a 50-page book.
Like a whole binder.
Of everything they need to know about, like, how to cook, how to clean, how to do anything, like
with diagrams, apparently.
Yeah, apparently with diagrams. Apparently with diagrams.
So one thing that I really liked, I love the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yes.
One of the episodes in the last season is called It's a Man, 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 Man World.
Right.
So I liked that episode even before I watched it, right when I saw the title.
Beautiful.
That's just one little tidbit. Another thing, we sort of talked about it off air, and I talked about it when I mentioned it was my favorite show of the year, but there is very, very good music at the end of every episode. So one thing I don't like about all these streaming platforms is when an episode ends, unless you click on something, the next episode's going to start right away. Like, they don't let you watch the credits. But for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you should watch the credits because they always play a good song at the end, and they play the full song or almost the full song. Like, for example, in the last season, there was a song by Squeeze, there was a song by Joan Jett, there was a song by Steelers Wheel, there was a song by Tegan and Sara, which, by the way, Tegan and Sara were not around in the 60s.
No, none of these bands were around in the 60s, but like they make a point of having like music that juxtaposes the time, like they have like 80s alternative, like all of a sudden, in one episode, but sometimes they do have music from the 50s or 60s. Like, it's completely kind of, I don't want to say it's random because I'm sure there's a lot of thought that went in by the producers of like what song to use, but they really put songs that are like a surprise. They're like in your face. You're like, oh, like it kind of doesn't match, like what you just saw,
And by the way, there was this whole other storyline going on that I didn't figure out until the end. Where Abe's dry cleaning was burnt, and everywhere Rose would go, like the club where she would do her matchmaking burned down, and then all of a sudden, like, you see Susie being called to this prison to talk to an inmate, and the inmate is one of the people who's competing with Rose for matchmaking. And it took me forever to figure out that whole storyline.
Well, Rose thought that those women were after her.
But they were, she was invading. She was right.
They were. Well, did they burn down the building? I don't know. Rose thinks they did,
But apparently wasn't that why that woman was in prison?
Well, I think she was in prison because Susie kind of put her there. Like she used her connections to like get her in prison. I don't know.
Anyway,
Like,
there's so
that's a
many
good
other things
question.
going on behind the scenes that I think I need to watch the season all over again, and I'll catch things that I completely missed.
Right. I got it. So some of the parts that I really liked, I mentioned them. Like there's some stuff that I like. I loved the season in the Catskills. I thought the Catskills stuff was hysterical.
That was a good season, yes.
I really liked when she was on tour with Shai Baldwin because it was showing like how her career was starting to become good. It was like it was good. It was good. It was funny. It was entertaining. When they went to Paris, like that was really dumb. You know, the mother leaves and they go. Like, that was so stupid. And the one thing that it really didn't seem to work in the last 2 seasons, like she ended up working at that strip club. Like she was the MC at the strip
Right.
club. Like that's the only job she could get. You know, like I was like, come on. You know, you could have gone back to work at these different comedy clubs. I'm sure she could have like but I mean, they made a point of showing that was the place where she could do her material without anyone saying like you can't say this or you shouldn't say this. Like she was doing what she wanted to do, right?
But it was also important because that's where Gordon Ford happened to be when
100%.
he noticed her, if you will.
Yes.
So
exactly,
if not for
yes.
that, then she doesn't get the job on his show.
Right. I liked the season 5, the writer's room. I thought like those other 5 guys like that she was writing for the Gordon Ford show. Like obviously it's tough, she's a woman and like it's hard for her to like make her place in that with those other guys. But they do learn to respect her. They realize she's more talented than them. Most of them realize that like after a certain amount of time. It's good. Those episodes in the Gordon Ford office are well done.
It's interesting. So everyone's afraid of Gordon Ford except her. Like she'll talk back to him. She'll say anything to him. And then when she has that incident with him at the bar after the show, everyone thinks she's going to get fired the next morning. She brings a box to work, and then he's like no big deal, like he didn't seem to care. But if anyone else had done that to him, they might have been fired. But she was able to get away with stuff that no one else was able to get away with.
Yeah. I mean, she's great. Like the actress, Rachel Brosnahan, she's great in the role. Like I don't know. Look, can other actresses do this role? Maybe. But like you said, the dialogue is so fast. When she does the stand-up routines, wherever she's doing them, whether she's doing it in the nightclub at the beginning of and like in the little clubs at the beginning, or when she's on tour in Florida, or like in the Catskills, she's in bigger rooms. Like her stand-up routines are amazing. Like they are so good. It's like I don't know if every actress could just jump in and do that role. Like it's probably just made for her.
I mean, it's not only hard for the actress, it's hard for the writers, I find, to write that stuff.
God. The writers have to write a show, but then they also have to write stand-up routines,
And like, how do you even write that? Because a lot of it is like she's just, riffing. She's just, venting about stuff. It's hard to write that.
It makes it look like she's riffing, but I mean, that's part of the genius of the writing too, because it's written in a way that it looks like she's riffing, but it's actually, I'm sure the actress is not just making up the lines. Like it's all scripted, right? All right. Well, look, I think we could probably go on for probably another 20 minutes going over Mrs. Maisel. I'm like I said, if you haven't watched it, well, we've just revealed everything. So sorry about that. And if you have watched it, which I'm assuming you have, if you've been listening, I hope you enjoyed like our weird, timey-wimey, all over the place discussion. That's kind of the way we roll. I really love the show. Like I said, I thought the final season was awesome. And this is one more thing that I wanted to say before I wrap up. I read an article where it said that the creator of the show, Amy Sherman Palladino, no relation to me, had in her mind from the very beginning the final scene of the show. Like she knew how it was going to end. So I think that sort of explains why they did all the fast forwarding in the final season, because they knew they couldn't do it for 4 more seasons. They needed to finish it in season 5. So she had in her head the whole time that the final scene is basically just Midge and Susie about their friendship, and also illustrating how they're both kind of alone, right? They both have no one else. So it's kind of happy because, They made it. They're successful. They got everything they wanted. They got everything they worked for. But there was a sacrifice in that they don't have much of a family or really anybody else. So it's kind of bittersweet.
Okay, we'll be right back with some final thoughts.
You're listening to Unscripted.
Do you know John Hyatt songs?
Maybe you know them from being covered by Roseanne Cash, Three Dog Night, the Neville Brothers, Emmylou Harris, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, Jeff Healey, Bonnie Raitt, or literally hundreds of others.
Maybe you have some of his albums on your shelf or in your cow-horned Cadillac right now.
I'm Jesse Jackson,
And I'm Sylvan Groff.
and we're going to dive in from A to Z. Join us on the Perfectly Good podcast.
We're going to discuss all of your favorites and uncover some forgotten gems, from Aces Up Your Sleeve to Zero House.
Rate and debate every John Hyatt song on the Perfectly Good podcast. Have a little faith.
Unscripted with Skip and Josh is available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. To interact with the show, send an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Follow the show on Twitter and go to Facebook to like the show page. And now, some final thoughts from the guys.
All right, Josh. I thought that for final thoughts today, I would just give you some weird stats. Not weird, really amazing stats from the world of sports that I came across in the last 2 weeks.
Okay, good, because I have two as well.
Okay. So, the Giants lost in week 1 of the NFL season 40-0 to the Dallas Cowboys.
I did see the score. I didn't see the game.
Yeah, Giants fans were all excited that they signed their big quarterback, Daniel Jones. He's making $1 bajillion, and then they want him released after week 1. Gotta love football fans. So here's a stat. No team has ever lost 40-0 or worse, lost the sack battle 7-0 or worse, lost the turnover battle 3-0 or worse, had a blocked field goal for a touchdown, and threw a pick 6 in the same season. Like, none of those things ever happened to one team in the same season. The Giants did it all in one game.
Wow, they should be proud. They're in the record book.
They should be really proud. They knocked it out of the park. Week 1, boom, you did all those things.
That is
My
cool.
other stat is about baseball. A few weeks ago, the Astros destroyed the Texas Rangers. I think it was 14-1. And Jose Altuve had 3 home runs in the same game.
That's pretty amazing.
I read a crazy stat. He had hit his 3rd home run of the game before the Texas Rangers number 7, 8, and 9 batters ever came to bat.
That is insane.
Like, I read this stat and I was like, no, this can't be right. And then I looked at the box score and I was like, holy smokes. He led off the game with a home run. They sent 9 batters to the plate. Texas went 1-2-3. He led off the 2nd inning with a home run. They sent 9 batters to the plate. Texas went 1-2-3. And then he led off the 3rd inning with a home run. And then in the bottom of the 3rd, the Texas number 7 batter, 8 and 9 batter finally came to bat. It's absolutely nuts.
Can you imagine you're one of those 7, 8, 9 hitters? You haven't even come up to bat yet, and a guy on the other team's already hit 3 home runs?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The baseball is really an amazing sport for stuff like this. Like, sports in general, like this, it always has a way of amazing us. What do you have? So you have some weird.
So I have one football and one baseball. So football, do you know, without looking it up, which quarterback holds the record for most complete passes without an interception?
I would say it's Joe Montana.
It's not Joe Montana. Do you want me to tell you who it is?
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Okay, so, I don't think you'll be surprised by 1 and 2, but I think you will be surprised by number 3. So, Aaron Rodgers is number 1. He threw 402 passes without an interception in 2018.
That makes sense because his 2018 season was crazy, and I think he threw something like 7 interceptions, something the whole year.
To me, I would never have guessed 402. If you asked me to guess, I would have said maybe 100. Anyway, you're not going to be surprised. Number 2 is Tom Brady, 399 passes without an interception. He did that in 2022.
Okay.
This blew me away. Number 3 on the list, This is currently happening now, today. Like, this streak is still alive. I mean, there's games today, so it could end. But number 3 on the list, so it goes from 402 to 399 to 359. 359 is third on the list all time.
Yeah.
You'll never guess who it is. He's playing now.
But I won't guess. No.
It's Jared Goff. Jared Goff has not thrown an interception since like week 9 of last year.
It's amazing. Well, you know what? He really had a great year last year, and he's a thoroughly underrated quarterback. You know, the guy was the first overall pick in the draft, and everyone just throws him away like he's garbage. But he's a good NFL quarterback. You know, you put a good team around him, he's going to be good. You know.
So I was floored when I saw that stat. I thought, no, this can't be right. I had to look it up, and sure enough, it is right.
I have a reason to watch the Detroit Lions game today just to see if he throws an interception.
Of course, I've jinxed him now. The other stat is not so much a stat, but it's something that happened in a baseball game that I was watching that I've never seen before, similar to what you were talking about. So it was a Blue Jays game. There were 2 outs, and no one was on base. The Blue Jays were batting. The next guy walks, I think on 4 pitches. The next guy walks, also I think on 4 pitches. And the same pitcher is still in the game. So now there's 2 outs, there's 2 men on, and the same pitcher still in the game. He walks the next batter also. So he walked 3 batters in a row. However, what I forgot to tell you, what I neglected to tell you, is before that batter walked, this pitcher threw 3 consecutive wild pitches, and both runners on base ended up scoring before he actually walked.
Wow, I love it. Baseball is awesome, honestly. Baseball's awesome.
So I was watching it live. I'm like, did that just really happen? I had to rewind and watch it again.
Beautiful. All right, awesome discussion about Mrs. Maisel. Awesome little discussion here about weird sports stats and jinxing. And I'll speak to you next time.
Have a great week.